So we'll begin with some meditation. Today, my plan is to talk about samadhi based on enthusiasm. So we'll start with becoming comfortable in our posture. And having our spine straight but relaxed, the body relaxed. And the Buddha taught many different methods for meditation. Different kinds of objects to focus on and sort of different approaches to meditation. But they all involve certain basic elements. An attention to our posture, whether we're standing, sitting, walking, or lying down. And in general, I think that means a straight spine. When we're sitting, the Buddha says, being kind of upright spine. But all too often we think that that means that we should be kind of stiff and putting energy into holding ourselves upright. When actually one of the important factors of meditation is that we relax. That we let go of tension in the body and in the mind. And it can be very helpful to bring an attitude of kindness to the meditation. We often think about striving, and we do need to strive in a certain sense, but not in a way that's harsh or restrictive or closed, but in a way that's consistent, diligent, peaceful, happy, joyful. The happy mind is easily concentrated, the Buddha said. So I like to use my breathing as a way to introduce that calm and happy feeling to the body. Take a few long breaths. Let them out deeply. And I think because I've been working with in and out breathing as my main meditation object for many years now, as soon as I start to put attention on my breath, my body starts to let go of its tension and begins to relax. And maybe that's true for you too. But if watching, or you might say observing or following the breath isn't relaxing, sometimes we can have more stress arise paying attention to the breath. And we should find the focus or orientation of the mind that really helps us to let go, relax, allow the body to become peaceful and tranquil, whatever that might be. I think this is one reason that the Buddha gave so many different methods. And we're all different. We all have different conditioning, different histories. We force ourselves to follow something that actually feels wrong to us. Sometimes we can create more problems. And it's not wrong in the big picture, but maybe wrong for us as individuals. So then we can use a different approach. Maybe we bring in thoughts of kindness, compassion. Maybe we have a scene we bring to mind that's calming. We might even have some kind of comforting prop like a shawl that is warm, and it may sound strange, but we should do what helps as long as it's wholesome, as long as it helps us to become calm and peaceful and freer from distress. And then as the body becomes more calm and peaceful, we can start bringing more attention to the mind. Noticing thoughts or thought patterns and inviting those to become calm. And since today we're going to put some attention on enthusiasm or wholesome, uplifting, beneficial desire, we can imagine or bring to mind something that really lifts up the heart, that encourages that enthusiasm. For me, oftentimes that's reflections on the Buddha and what he did. An amazing, generous, intelligent teacher who was willing to take his body and mind to the absolute limit to discover how we awaken. To gain the depth of wisdom, realization, and understanding that he gained, and then to teach it in a way that many, many people could become free from suffering. And it's amazing that we observe it in our own lives as we practice. And we see that unfolding in so many others. One step at a time with generosity and virtue. As we cultivate these qualities and become more and more happy, content, free from distress, and more capable, resilient, and able to deal with these challenges that every human being, one way or another, must face. It's amazing, inspiring, encouraging. And for you, there may be other things to think about, focus on, bring to mind that uplift the heart and encourage you to practice. That encourage enthusiasm. Sometimes people have a short piece of scripture or something that the Buddha said that they memorize and repeat in the mind. That brings happiness, joy, encouragement. Or a little snippet of chanting that you do on a regular basis. So we encourage the mind to be at ease and calm. And then we can just observe what happens. Staying present with that meditation object. And opening the mind to what might ever arise, whatever might arise. So I thought we'd start talking and for the next few weeks talk about the Iddhipadas, which are often translated as the basis for spiritual power. And there are four. The Buddha talked about, well, the Pali is Chanda, Virya, Chitta, and Vimamsa. And we're going to go into each one of them over the next few weeks. But I thought I'd first talk a little bit about Iddhi. And in pre-Buddhist times, or Iddhi's a thing. In spiritual circles around psychic powers. And Iddhi pre-Buddhist, according to the Polytext Society, Poly English Dictionary, that Iddhi is used for a lot of things. Like it said the four Iddhis of a king are personal beauty, long life, good health, and popularity. The Iddhis for a rich young noble is the use of a beautiful garden, having soft and pleasant clothing, different houses for different seasons, and good food. The Iddhi for a hunter is the craft and skill to capture the game, and Iddhi for the game is by their own intelligence to outwit the hunter. The Iddhi of a bird is its ability to fly. So you can kind of get like this kind of capability or something that you have that's beneficial or enjoyable. That's one way this word is used. And then there's also Iddhis as psychic powers. And there's a common list that you'll see in the suttas of the different kinds of psychic powers. But the Buddha really discouraged focusing on Iddhi in that way. And in one sutta in the Digha Nikaya, in the long discourses, and it's sutta number 11, the Buddha talks about sort of three kinds of power. And it starts with someone, a householder, visiting the Buddha and saying, you should tell your monks to demonstrate superhuman psychic powers, because then a lot of people will believe and become devoted. And the Buddha says, that's not how I teach. I don't teach my mendicants to do that. And he said, if you do these kinds of things, like if a mendicant can multiply them, so this is the list: multiply themselves and become one again, or that's a projecting your image or yourself somewhere, like what do they call that? I'm blanking on the word, like bilocating, I guess, is kind of the idea. That's one way. Or moving through walls or mountains, walking through walls or mountains or that kind of thing, diving in and out of the earth, or walking on water, flying through the air cross-legged like a bird would, through the sky, touching and stroking with your hand the sun and the moon, controlling your body as far as the Brahma world. So we've recently had some suttas where either the Buddha himself or maybe Moggallana would, as quickly as someone might extend their arm, disappear from here and show up in the Brahma world. Brahma realm, that kind of thing. So the Buddha says, yeah, there are these things. If a mendicant, does these things, and someone sees that, who has faith and confidence, they're amazed. But then they tell someone else who doesn't have that faith, and they go, yeah, there's a spell that you can cast so that people think that's happening. And it does no good. It doesn't. In fact, it's a quite negative result. So the Buddha said, because of that, he's disgusted by demonstrations of psychic power. And he says the same thing about revealing that you can read someone's mind. And but then he says it's the power of teaching, the power of instruction, that is really the greatest iddhi, the greatest sort of power. And the way he puts it in this sutta, he says, if someone says, think like this, not like that, focus your mind like this, not like that, give up this and live having achieved that. And then, from that, people develop virtue and they develop their meditation, different levels of jhana, or, deep samadhi. And then they are able to extend and project the mind toward knowledge and vision, to really completely understand the Dhamma and realize Nibbana. So this is the real power. So when the Buddha talked about the Iddhipadas, he was talking about using them for samadhi. And it's interesting to see these 4 things in terms of like a successful endeavor of any kind. The first one, Chanda, which I'm going to put some focus on in a few minutes, is the intention we have, or the purpose, or the enthusiasm, that, this desire to do something, but it's a desire to do something wholesome and good. I'll talk about that more in a minute. And you have to have that kind of desire to accomplish anything, not just training the mind and deepening its ability to relax into samadhi and reveal the deeper reaches of the mind. And then there's the virya, which is effort. You have to put some effort into what you're doing. You have that clear intention, that desire to do something good, and then you put in the energy. And then where it says chitta, mind, it's the pure mind, the clarity of what you're wanting to accomplish, and the maintaining of that. And then the final one is vimamsa, which is kind of an evaluation or investigation of how it's going. So if you wanted to start a business, for example, you need to have the idea and the energy, the desire to do it. And then you put in the work, the virya, and you have to have your mind clear and focused on the right things. And then you continually come back and check how it's going. You want to evaluate, make course corrections. So the Buddha is talking about this in terms of our meditation. And there's a whole section in the Samyutta Nikaya on the Iddhipada. It's book 51. And in the second sutta, the Buddha says, those who have neglected these 4 bases of spiritual power have neglected the noble path, leading to the complete destruction of suffering. And those who've undertaken the 4 bases of spiritual power have undertaken the noble path, leading to the destruction of suffering. So you can see how important the Buddha takes us to be. So when we look at this first quality, the Chanda can be used in both senses of desire, a desire that's virtuous, like what he intends here when it's one of these four, Iddhipada, or powers, spiritual powers. But the same word is also used as an unwholesome, referring to unwholesome desire. So it's used often in the sequence of Chanda, Dosa, Moha, and Bhaya, which is like desire, aversion, delusion, and fear. Like he'll say, we should never take action or make decisions based on desire, aversion, delusion, or fear. Or another way, greed, hatred, delusion, or fear. So it's these things, you can see this same word being used there. And so it's, when we look at, desire in the Buddhist context, most of the time it's something we're trying to let go of. And there is a sutta, I don't even remember right now which one, where someone comes, this is a practitioner from another sect, I think, comes to the Buddha and says, how can you talk positively about desire? I mean, I can't see how any kind of desire is going to get you to the place of not having desire, which of course is the ideal. And it's like, it's clear from the Buddhist teachings that we can't find happiness by satisfying our desires, that happiness comes from being free from desire. But in this case, when this person brings this up, the Buddha says, you have to have desire. You have to have desire to do anything. He said, you came here, you had to have the desire to come to see me. There's no way we can get around it. But we have to make sure to upgrade our desires to those things that are actually beneficial until we're completely free from the delusion that there's anything conditioned that's worth clinging to. And maybe we could even say we don't have to cling to this Chanda, but we make use of it. And I like Bhante Sujato's translation of this, because he calls it enthusiasm, which I think is really helpful. There's actually a sutta that before my computer had to get completely restarted, I had up on the screen. So maybe I can find it again. Let me see real quickly here. I can quickly get into Sutta Central and locate it in the linked discourses. I should be showing you the screen because then you would know how to do it, but I'm going to make this quick, hopefully. Here we go. It's number 13 in the 51st book. So Samyutta Nikaya 5113 it's called Immersion Due to Enthusiasm. And I like this translation. If a mendicant depends on enthusiasm in order to gain immersion, so in order to gain samadhi, so you start to get the idea that you use certain qualities, all four of these different qualities, Iddhipadas, as ways to go deeper into samadhi. So you use enthusiasm to gain immersion, gain unification of mind. This is called immersion due to enthusiasm. They generate enthusiasm. Try, make an effort, exert the mind and strive so that bad, unskillful qualities don't arise. They generate enthusiasm. Try. Make an effort, exert the mind, and strive so that bad, unskillful qualities that have arisen are given up. They generate enthusiasm. Try. Make an effort, exert the mind, and strive so that skillful qualities arise. And then, of course, the same for striving that so that skillful qualities that have arisen remain and are not lost, but increase, mature, and are fulfilled by development. And of course, many of you will recognize these as the four right efforts, part of the Noble Eightfold Path. And these, but this, in this case, it's using this spiritual power of enthusiasm to gain, to really shape and train ourselves in these right efforts. And it's and then he goes through the same things for the other three, for energy, for the development of the mind, and for the investigation or inquiry around how the meditation, it's like an inquiry into maybe Dhamma or reflection on our practice that brings us deeper into samadhi as well. So this is the way we can think of these as tools. So how does creating or invoking and encouraging enthusiasm in the heart help us to go into deeper samadhi, help become calm, mentally clear, the mind unified? And I think one of the things that's important to recognize is how much meditation is related to what we feel. It's like the Buddha makes this very clear often in, how he encourages us to pay attention to piti and sukha and these feelings that uplift us, that bring a tremendous feeling of peacefulness to the body, and encourage the mind to become still and clear, bright, awake, and very calm. Why? Because that's the doorway, the entree into our deeper reaches of the mind, into realization of the way things actually are. And, it was kind of interesting. We had this conversation or references to expectations, and holding expectations or thinking, I need to get this, I need to strive to get something, that really completely throws us off track or holds us back. Oddly enough, it's about opening, becoming less goal oriented and more is open and ready, available to experience something we haven't experienced before. That's how we awaken. So my encouragement here is to really consider how to use enthusiasm in this way. And what is that like? Or desire, positive, wholesome application of desire. So I think I'll just stop there. I'd love to know what comments you have, or experiences, or questions. Yes, Paula and Phil. You're still muted.
Sorry, I'm trying to
Oh, she's got
work
it.
it from a distance. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm far from the laptop.
You're perfect. I can hear you just fine.
Great. So with everything going on lately, I haven't had a lot of enthusiasm for my meditation because of being so distracted. And I think I recognize that that's what's needed. And yesterday I tried to read a passage from a book that might inspire me, but then I never got to the meditation. So I'm wondering what you recommend if you really want to sit down and you just aren't feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just distracted.
Did the passage help?
I like reading better than I like meditating.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes when we're engaged in a lot of activity, and now I think the activity, is it primarily from trying to get settled after moving?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got things that need to be done to kind of fix up the house, it sounds like.
It's just like a million things that we're juggling all at once.
Yeah.
So the mind is just active with tasks.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the, I mentioned earlier that when we can very confidently tell people that if they're coming to a monastery, it's not going to be what they expect. This is one of the applications because I've also been in the same position lately. I'm juggling a million things, not just me, of course, but Ayya Santussika too. We're juggling about 18 balls are in the air, and this is part of the training of the mind. How do you, in the midst of all that, become still? How do you return to a state of calm, peace, lightness, joy, a state where your mind can really let go? And it's challenging. But a first step I find that's helpful is while you're doing something that doesn't require a lot of thinking, chant a mantra or a word. I use Bhutto, all that Thai conditioning. I'm like Bhutto, and this is like while you're washing the dishes, while you're doing the laundry, while you're sweeping the floor, while you're walking from here to there, use Bhutto anytime you don't have to be thinking. A lot of times we don't have to be thinking, but we are thinking because we are afraid we're going to forget to tell the contractor this thing or call that person back or whatever. And you probably have methods for that already. Write things down, make a note, make a plan for what you're going to do for the next 2 hours, and then take as much time as you can while doing whatever you're doing to chant in your mind. And then, it's a training, it's a conditioning. We condition the mind to become more still based on this particular, because we'll do it over and over, this particular, behavior, this particular method. So you got to find what works for you, what word or words, or sometimes people develop a very strong connection to the breath, and they're really staying present with their in-breath and out-breath, even while they're active. And that can help bring the mind to focus, to calm. And so if we do that while we're working, or another way, like Ajahn Ganha, he's like, even for monastics, 2 hours of sitting meditation is enough for a day. So an hour in the morning, morning puja, an hour in the evening, evening puja. And then the rest of the time you work. But while you work, you're also focused. Your mindfulness is there. He even talks about samadhi being there. What kind of samadhi is there while we're working? And you can actually do this. You can be focused enough listening to other people that your mind can actually be very calm, walk away from that situation really feeling like you meditated. So these are some of the ways that we keep the mind or bring the mind back to what I want to say, kind of like it's a pre-meditative meditation. So it's like you're pre-meditating, and then it's much easier when you have even a few moments to sit down and let it settle. So that's one approach. I think it's a pretty important approach, actually.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking back, and what you're saying is you can't expect to just sit down and meditate. You have to keep a state of calm and mindfulness throughout the day, and that will help when you sit down.
Yeah, and also it helps us in the process of whatever we're doing. In addition to the calming of the mind, the focusing of it on the breath or the mantra or whatever, it's also you engaging the wisdom aspect where we are doing some of this evaluation and we're catching it with our mindfulness. We're catching it when we're getting, stressed, and when the mind is spinning, and when we're anxious, and we catch that, and then we can soothe our minds and our body somewhat to like remind ourselves of the Dhamma, remind ourselves temporary, all of this is so like not really that important in the bigger scheme of things. What's really important is that I'm kind in the middle of this, that I'm listening to people, that I'm holding back whatever kind of reaction I might want to have. So you can really, even that reminder of wisdom is really helpful to keep the mind connected to its spiritual, natural state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Cynthia?
Thank you for those comments that you just made in response to Paula, because that helps my situation too. But I guess I'm a little confused when I think of Chanda as desire, and maybe that's different from enthusiasm. It sort of seems like there has to be an object, like a desire for something. But then at the very end, you said something about not having expectations. So I'm having trouble putting those two together. Like, what am I desiring, and how do I desire it without having expectations for it to happen? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that is a discernment that's useful. So you can really kind of invest that. And I would say start by just having the desire to be calm and peaceful. Something simple. And it's not like if we desire, like, I want to get sotapan, I want to get jhana. Oh my gosh, that's such a showstopper. It's like, so the we have a lot of desires that inhibit us and make us more stressed, or if we have a kind of, this is in the expectation category, we have a kind of goal-oriented approach. We need to keep our eye on the ultimate objective of awakening. But it's not like I'm going to get awakened by Thursday. It just can't, it doesn't work like that. what we're moving towards, and that's the thing. We want to know whether we're moving towards or away from what's beneficial. So that much we need to know. And when we're moving towards it, it's about letting go, not about gaining something. And so using our discernment to know that when we have expectations, that's we're in that zone of trying to solidify like what it is that we're after. And what we need to be doing is letting go, and working on the quality of our attitude, of our mental states, of our virtue, of, those things that we know are the right ingredients. We work on the ingredients. What comes out of the oven in the end, that's going to be a complete surprise. So we just have to don't have expectations about that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Carrie?
Thank you for those comments. I'm kind of in a similar boat to Paula. We are about to transition to assisted living, gradual transition to assisted living. It's a few blocks from here, so I'm planning to basically keep the house. And my not only is my mind completely wrapped up in that, but my body is having my nervous system is having a huge reaction.
Yeah.
So I talked to one of my lay teachers about this, because when I'm sitting, all of this is going on, and he encouraged me to simply try to let the body settle, even while the mind may still be in the planning. And I found that helpful. So I can, instead of judging myself and having aversion to the fact that my mind isn't settled, I'm just trying to really let the nervous system chill.
Yeah.
And I also noticed today while we were sitting that there's a certain pleasure in having the mind trying to figure out, like, well, what size mattress do I need? Do we need a head?
Yeah.
And that's interesting to notice, like, oh, well, maybe I can just like let go of the thinking and just enjoy, pleasant sensation. But I wondered about your thoughts about letting the mind do what it has to do, and while trying to just settle the nervous system and the body for a while.
Yeah, I would agree that that's a really important phase, actually. When the mind is that busy, we're preoccupied, and the body is reacting. I'm convinced that the body is likely to have reactions, even though we already know better. The body still may, and many of you have heard me say this before. I think, like in the dying process, for example, our body might really have reactions to the fact that our breathing is labored, or there's other things that are happening. There might be a physical, kind of almost physical reptilian reaction that has fear in it, but we might already be at a place in our mind that we know it's okay. We know that this is inevitable. We know we're fine. So, like what you're experiencing now, it makes total sense to me that your system is having a reaction to this. And yes, to whatever degree you can soothe the body, help it to become calm. And the mind might still be busy, but you might also have that feeling of that spiritual uplift, some piti, some sukha, and that's all helpful. And if the mind still wants to be, ticking off whatever it's okay. Sometimes you just cannot get it to stop, but that's okay. Yeah. See if you can give it something really pleasant to chew on. That's, pleasantly wholesome, like that inspiring words or something too might help.
Yeah, it's really partly because I'm letting go of my home. So my body is having a reptilian reaction, basically, to, I don't know where we're going. I don't know what it's going to be like. And that will pass.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Carrie.